So this is the first of a series of monthly meets that I'm planning to do to catch up. I hope the platform works well. The idea, of course, is to not only reconnect with the students' fraternity, but also to keep tapping into each other's spaces, consciousness, growth. We're WWW, I call it the World Wide Web. So it's a growing fraternity of people, like-minded people who are tuned into a certain way of thinking. At the moment, I'm looking at myself in the screen and talking, but I hope it goes well. I'm probably thinking that I will maybe speak for about half an hour or maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And then we'll have about 15-20 minutes of Q&A, which I believe will happen on the type screen. Let's see how this goes. So predominantly, since the theme speaks on master your life, let me begin with that. What does life mastery mean to all of us? I think generally a space where every moment of your life you're happy. Every step that we take normally is towards that goal. And of course, for different people, happiness means different things. So some of us feel happy when we succeed at work. Some of us feel happy when we get love and appreciation. Some of us feel happy if we make a lot of money. Some of us feel happy if we have good health. But we all have different parameters for happiness. But mastering your life, according to me, is largely the ability to stay in a happy state, because that's what eventually we all want. All our desires, wishes, drives, everything is largely focused on this singular goal of happiness. There are very few simple formulas which one has to keep in mind in a progressive world about this happiness thing. So, since everything in this cosmos is essentially energy, and energy follows principles, energy follows laws, and Newton's law with energy says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The action initiates from us willfully. The reaction comes from the world, from people, and from the environment. Which means the first basic energetic rule of happiness is that whatever it is that you want is what you have to first learn to give. Because the energy that you put out will become the energy that will eventually come back. That's a very, very simple law. So common sense tells you that if you want respect from people, you have to first give respect to people. If you want love from people, you have to first give love to people. If you want security from people, you must first give security to people. And it's the same with the environment. You expect honesty from the environment, you must be honest with the environment. So, by and large, the whole game initiates with your willful action. So, if you were to make a list of everything that you wanted from this world that would make you happy, either from people or from the environment, once you make that list, you first do that yourself to others. You start from there. So you start by respecting people, you start by loving people, you start by making other people successful. And by the law of karma, it is very natural that it should come back to you. That is, A is equal to B, B is equal to A. Simple, straightforward, direct formula. However, we notice that in a few areas that works very well. It works brilliantly for things where we have no serious backlog. As a consciousness, we are huge. We traverse several time and space continuums and dimensions. We are not a unipolar conscious body. There are many things that have happened before us, by us. There are many things that are happening right now in this moment with us. And of course, there will be many things that will happen later. So this is just a temporary moment in our stream of consciousness. So sometimes what we put out, we get back instantly, and that's a very straightforward story. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And it's in the times that doesn't happen that our life goes out of gear. I truly don't believe that at the core, any of us is overtly sadistic, at least not the group that's currently listening to this talk. You wouldn't be here listening to this otherwise. So if I can presume, basic presumption, that you are all good people at heart, nobody wishes evil for anybody else, then when you act in a certain way and it doesn't respond, it naturally throws you off gear. And that happens to the best of us. So you act in integrity, but you don't get integrity back. Or you put love out to people, but you don't get love back. And then you don't know what is happening. And from there starts your loss of connection with the bandwidth of happiness. Because you are now not getting back what you have put out. In classical parlance, since of course this is a group of students and we are into energy work and we are into hypnotherapy and we are into understanding the subtle workings of the mind, a very generic space where you would put this is maybe karma, maybe destiny, or it's just not in my framework, etc. One of the most basic things you would have learned in the level 1 hypnotherapy course is that you are the Lord and Master of your life. So there's absolutely nothing that's happening in your world that isn't actively or passively sanctioned by you across time and space. So naturally, when you act in a certain way and you don't get the same back, or it's not reciprocated, there is a backlog that you can call as destiny or karma that is playing out. Now, what do? Do you become like a helpless victim? Do you start wallowing in self-pity, in your own grave? Keep believing that you are the most unlucky thing that has walked this earth? Or keep believing that good things can never happen to you? You know, all these toxic belief systems are almost ridiculously easy to form. And the world will then bat backwards to cooperate with you and proving that over and over again. So the first principle is to recognize it. That's the first principle, which means you are putting love out, it's not being reciprocated, sometimes by a particular person. So recognize that there is a backlog here. There is something at play that is beyond your conscious, cognitive, natural awareness. Starts from there. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that something is playing up here that is not natural and that doesn't belong to the current age and time. Now, of course, it's difficult to acknowledge this when you are in the grip of the emotion, because when you get betrayed, you have trusted, or when you give love and you don't receive it back, the emotional quagmire is very strong. It pulls you down. I know, I understand that. We've all been there. We've done that before. It happens to the best of us. But having said that, at some point of time, you will shake that off. It's natural. The moment you come to that point and understand and acknowledge that, okay, so I acknowledge this. This is not natural, but I acknowledge it. Now, the funny part is that if your response to that becomes a negative emotion, then your karma, your destiny, your pattern, your game just continues. And that's when we start our descent into the abyss of helplessness. It's when we find ourselves unable to respond. So we were at this junction where the first rule of the game is to acknowledge it, is to acknowledge that what I'm doing is not getting reciprocated and there is a reason for it. Now, the second part of the story is somehow to not get stuck in the same negative emotional response pattern to it. Because if you do that, the karma doesn't end. If you do that, your destiny just continues in the same spin. And that's how you keep developing repetitive patterns in life. Now, how do you not respond negatively? And this is where the adult in you needs to take charge. This is where the adult in you needs to get a grip and say, I recognize this. This is something of the past that is coming back to me. And I'm going to make a conscious effort as the adult to continue putting out what I am supposed to put out. This is the one single, the most challenging, but the most powerful story behind it all. So if you recognize the pattern, and you willfully work at changing your response, which means don't fret, don't get lost, take your time emotionally. Of course, I'm going to give you a formula of how to do that practically, and continue to put out what you had initially decided to do. Now, here's the funny part. The moment you recognize your karma and the moment you acknowledge it and the moment you make up your mind to not stray from the path of the adult, which means I will continue to give love, funny things start to happen. And that's when the universe starts to give you resources to close those files. I normally share on Nurturers Meets with students formulas that I apply to my own life. I think most of you are aware of that. That I get an insight, I live it out first in my own practical reality. And when I see that there is a base to it and it works well is when I feel it's probably time to share it with people. So I've done this, and believe me, it's remarkable. It takes a little effort, but it's a foolproof formula of cracking the patterns of your life. Even if you really don't go deep back down into what the origin of the karma is. You are a regression therapist, you are a hypnotherapist, you are a tassotherapist. Yes, you can do that. That's brilliant. But day-to-day living, this is a very practical approach to do. Recognize the karma, acknowledge it, and just decide that you will not change your path. You will continue to do what you are doing. And then the universe resource starts to come in. Now, how do you break free of that response pattern, which is the next big story? So most of the times, when you have unfinished business of the past that grips your mind, the strongest impact of that is in your basic formative years. And since, of course, we are a group of hypnotherapists, we all understand that this is classically, in therapeutic parlance, what we would call as the inner child, which means the strongest influence of a destined pattern or a karmic pattern is going to be felt hugely by the child inside you. And your emotional response is coming from that child. This is your key. This is your core inner child. This is the child that is spinning your life. This is the child that is spinning your destiny. This is the child that's controlling everything that is happening to you. So you put love out, you don't receive it back, and then the grief, the frustration, and the tears that come belong to the child. The adult understands that this is destiny. The adult understands this is a pattern. The adult understands it's unfinished business. This is all adult conclusion. But the child is grieving. The child is angry. The child is sad. So one thing that perhaps you can do well is, as the feeling comes up, feel it. Don't fight it. Just feel it. And when you start to sense that the feeling is ebbing slowly, it's coming down, then just tell yourself, is it finished? It's a powerful line. It's one of the most powerful self-communications that you can have with your own child inside of you. You must give space to the child. The child must have a safe space to express, vent, and feel. It cannot be denied. But once the feeling is fully there, it will start to ebb after a while. And then the only $1 million response is to tell yourself, is it done? Is it over? And finally, that one single question brings the adult back. Now, this child inside of you is going to go through a slow process of letting go its beliefs, its inhibitions, its conclusions, its postulates, till it gets integrated into you, and you're going to have to put up with it till then. So how do you do this? So you do this firstly by acknowledging the child, letting it express, and then simply using the magic words, is it over now? Is it done? And then there will be a remarkable peace. Simultaneously, on the other hand, you must build up
constantly the adult presence. Because the more you build up the adult presence in your life, the more you will be able to choose a willful path of happiness. Which brings me to, how do you build up this adult presence? So this is as far as tackling the child is concerned. Is it over? Is it done? And then the child settles. And then the adult is back. How can we fortify this adult on a more, day-to-day basis? And this then links up to, I think, the series of videos that I put out just before the Japan retreat, which brings us to the very simple, fundamental biochemical understanding of happiness. Because it is the adult's prerogative to be happy. So, how does the adult be happy? And just to briefly put all those people into the loop who weren't there in the previous retreat. So, it's a biochemically established fact that in the human body, there are 4 hormones that contribute to happiness. And each of them is related to something very, very specific about us. I call it the daily dose of happiness, DOSE. It stands for 4 hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These are biochemically established hormones that contribute to us feeling good about our lives. 2 out of those 4 hormones have to do with you and yourself. 2 out of those 4 hormones have to do with the environment, because each one of us here on earth is playing a dual role. We are playing a role for ourselves, we are playing a role for other people. First, let's talk about ourselves. So the 2 hormones of happiness that are related to ourselves are endorphins and dopamine. Endorphins get released into the body whenever you do something that you like, which means make it a rule every day to do at least one thing that you love to do for yourself, whatever it can be, and that you are doing just for yourself, your own pleasure, whatever gives you joy. It doesn't depend on other people and it doesn't matter to other people. This is for you. You do something that you like to eat a chocolate, eat it, you'll feel good. You like to take a massage, take it, you will feel good. You like to do some shopping, do it, you'll feel good. That is, do one thing that gives you joy, and that will release endorphins in your body. It's the ego hormone. And the ego is not an evil thing. It defines you. Dopamine gets released whenever we have a sense of accomplishment, which is why whenever we set a target for ourselves in any sphere of our lives, and when we achieve it, we feel great about ourselves. We feel happy. Which means, on a daily basis, keep a small target to achieve. The target can be in any area. It can be something as insane as, for example, I can spot a pattern that I keep losing my temper with my house help routinely every day, and it upsets me. Because after I lose my temper, like a volcano, it settles down and then I feel guilty about why did I do this. So I'm simply going to count till 10 in my head before I shout. And you'll be surprised that once you no longer lose your temper instantly, there's a great sense of achievement. Sense of achievement can be in extremely small areas of your life. It doesn't have to be something huge about getting $1 million turnover about your business. Well, of course, if that gives you a high, do it. But dopamine will get released in your body, even with small acts of accomplishment that make you feel good. You are, for example, addicted to a certain lifestyle that disturbs you. Make a small attempt to conquer it. Small attempt. And if you manage, it makes you feel good. So these are the 2 hormones that, as the adult operating on will learn how to take charge of life. The other 2 hormones, which is oxytocin and serotonin, are to do with our relationship with the environment. Oxytocin is released when we bond with people, which means on a daily basis, meet somebody, bond with people, connect with friends, with family, spend time, quality time, as much as you can. You'll feel good about it. And finally, serotonin gets released when we do acts of charity. The one basic difference between Ascended Master and a human is the Master comes to give. And each one of us is a born Master, but it's outside our zone of awareness. Bring up that Master in you. Check what is it that you can give. Your time, your attention, charity. What can you do that can uplift society? So these are the 4 simple things you can build into daily living to concretize the adult. So if you understand the graph, when you start to stick to this as a part and parcel of life, you'll be shocked to see how beautifully you're able to make this transition to being in a happy space all the time. It's not about controlling the environment, because the environment will always be bigger than you. The key is, in this minefield of the environment, how do you negotiate your way to mastering your own life? So I'm just going to put this back into perspective. Rule number 1, behave with others as you want others to behave with you. Rule number 2, if others do not behave that way, understand that there is a backlog in that area. And it is that backlog that's responsible for this. Acknowledge it. Rule number 3, when you acknowledge it, there will be emotional pain. Feel it. It's the child in you. When you feel it, as the emotion comes to a crescendo and starts to settle, slowly check, is it over? And you will be back into the adult state. And rule number 4, make a checklist of 4 things that you do on a daily basis. Something that you do for yourself, something that gives you a sense of accomplishment, something that helps you to connect to people, and something that you can contribute back to society, however small or infinitesimal it is. As you start to do this, the awareness of the adult in the now starts to grow. And the more present the adult in this moment becomes, the stronger the bridge that you build with the child, the smoother is the transition of consciousness from the child into the adult state. Beyond a period of time, there will come moments when, with all the grace and all the resources of the universe, the backlog is over. And that moment also comes. And when the backlog is over, you start to receive back exactly what you have put out. So the key is to not compromising on your putting out. Continue to put out what you want and be patient and follow this formula. I think we are planning to do this once a month. So this is as good a time as any. Normally when I do Nurturers Meets, I give a plan to students to follow in their personal lives for a certain time period till we meet again, and then I do a review. So for me, this is a group at the moment. All of you who are listening to this, take this up seriously. Start today, if possible, maybe tomorrow, or make an action plan today. Action it right away. Start to maintain a logbook for yourself and start to make entries on this basis. See what you want from people. Start consciously behaving that way. Identify areas where you're not getting that behavior back. Acknowledge that. When the emotion comes up, check, is it over? And then make a checklist of 4 things that you do every day. I think we are next scheduled for a webinar of this sort on the 18th of July, which is approximately about a month and a week away. And we'll see in these 35 days how much of this transition into the adult state we are actually able to achieve. And I'm sure if you put your head down to it and you get serious about it, the number of moments that you will actually spend in happiness will far outweigh the moments that you will spend in sadness or grief. It's a formula I have tried, and it's a formula I have seen that's given brilliant results. So that's my sharing for the day. And probably now we see if you all have any questions. I've never done this before. So I think the questions will come in the chat box. So anybody has any doubts or gray areas or anything you'd like me to clarify, maybe you can put it on the chat and then I'll answer it live on the camera. So let's throw this open for a discussion. Anybody has any questions or doubts, just type it on the chat box and I get right back to you.
Hi. Yes, okay, fine. This is awesome. We're good because I've finally gone off the phone and I've come on to my laptop. Okay, Hana, I get your message. Thanks, Yuvraj. Happy to see you and hear your voice again. Hana, it's a pleasure. Lovely memories of Japan, and thank you for joining. Sonia is hi, sir. Yuvraj, hi, Sonia. Hi to you. Elisa, hello, Dr. Kapadia. Thank you so much. I would like to ask that are those 4 rules and principles the same thing or are they different? Elisa, this is my answer to you. No, the initial part is your response to identifying the child inside of you. The other four are very simple chemical formulas of happiness that will ground you into the adult state. Okay, so it's basically the same thing. Yes, Jessica, this is your question. Sir, can you explain this concept to people who do not believe in past lives or backlogs? Well, I didn't speak of past lives at all, but the fact remains that there are illogical things that happen to people with the best of intentions. And the universal creating system is not a moron. That's obvious, which means even if you don't make any reference to the past, the fact remains that even if you keep the framework of the present life in mind, you still do things and you don't get what you want. So you have to link it to the child. I didn't speak of past lives at all. No stress, no issues there. Because the inner child is going to be burdened with that karma in any case. You have no choice there. Then we come to Talal. How to know how far we are from bridging the gap from inner child to the adult state? Talal, by understanding how many moments in your life you stay in a happy state. That's the simplest way of understanding that. The more you are able to stay in a calm and centered state, in a happy state, the more the adult is in charge. So that's a very, very simple answer. Not only that, also by realizing that old triggers are no longer able to produce the same emotional response is the adult, because the adult has just decided to make a difference. Okay, Rujosh, that's for you. What is the acceptable level of enduring the pain and emotions when we feel let down in life? Couple of hours, days, and when do we ask, is it over? Brilliant. Yes, I know. That is a practical minefield. It's different for different people. Initially, it will take a while, Rujosh. Especially if you have no exposure to self-work, it will take a while. Be with it. But let me assure you that the first time you begin to feel it settle and you say, is it over? From that moment, it will just get faster. It's only the first attempt that takes time. Once you crack that, every subsequent entry point is just going to get better and better and quicker and quicker. Okay? Jamila, thank you so much. Dr. Yuvraj. Yes, Jamila, acknowledged. Thank you very much. Hana, when there is a pattern and you recognize it, but put an effort to clear it and it keeps repeating. Exactly. Hana, I started this whole talk from there. You see the pattern, you recognize it, you try to clear it, but it keeps repeating. The difference here is respond differently. And when you feel sad, when you feel upset about it, then feel the emotion. And simply when the emotion starts to come down, acknowledge it by saying, is it over? Because that's a direct communication with the child. Sometimes there is linear time that, is slightly longer. The key is not to lose your bearing in the response. So you recognize it, you make an effort to clear it, keep your grounding, it hits you back, feel the emotion, and then simply going into saying, is it done? Is it over? And you're back in track. The moment you recognize this as an overhang that you have to clear, the resource of the universe starts to come. That's the funny part. Okay. Yes, Yasmin, I acknowledge you. Fantastic. Hello, Dr. Yuvraj. Lovely to see you here. What if we are in a happy and content emotional state and we want to move forward in life, but the inner child does not? How does this process differ? Well, that's honestly one of the deepest hijacks of life, where you want to break free, but tragically, the child is in a cocoon state. You have to be patient and you have to be gentle, because the child belongs to you. The child has access to resources. Let me tell you, Yasmin, sometimes this is a process that takes a lifetime. And I'm in this line for many, many years now. So I've seen this up front. Sometimes people spend lifetimes trying to sort this out. Though we do have a practical approach, and God willing, inshallah, as they say, if you apply this, according to me, you should start getting breakthroughs pretty quickly. But at the end of the day, it is also about taking the reins of your life from the child who doesn't really know how to pilot your life, just has a lot of power, back into your own hands. Can take very long, but with awareness, the process gets much quicker. Okay. Is it because yes, Hana, I am back with you. Is it because I didn't ask if it's over? Yes, you must ask that. That's important. Acknowledge to say, is it over? And then the adult is back in charge. That's a very, very important step. Okay. And do it in your local language, please. That works best, because the child will not understand English. the child will be in your local language. So you do a self-talk in your head in the local language. Rujosh, thank you. Yes, Rujosh acknowledged. Jessica, thank you, acknowledged as well. Mariam, doctor, what is the fourth hormone you mentioned? I mentioned dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. Those are the 4 hormones I mentioned, Mariam. That's for you. Coming to Nisha Menon, thank you, sir. Okay, we've answered all the questions on the list. Not bad at all. Okay, thanks. Hannah is on the line. Yes, I don't know what's my local language. Spoke both from birth. So, Hannah, what you go with the language of thought. So, for example, when you are ruminating, when you're contemplating, what's the language that you use? You use English, then you speak in English. You use Arabic, you speak in Arabic. You just see which is the language that you're mentally communicating in. That's the key. And if it's both is comfortable, see what feels more correct on a given day. Yes, Dalal, thanks a lot. Yes, awesome. Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, here we come to Jessica once again. So what happens if checking in with the inner child to ask if it's over and you feel even more angered or upset, or a different emotion gets triggered? Could this happen? Yes, this can happen. It's not very common, but it's possible, especially if the child is very traumatized. It can happen. Which means when you ask, is it over? And suddenly another wave of emotion hits you, let the wave play out. Don't fight it. The key is don't fight the child. You won't get anywhere. When it plays out, change the mind dialogue. Move to, so I understand that was bad for you. Got it? This is all about learning how through self-dialogue you can slowly start to unravel the mystery of the child inside. Ideally, with one emotion, is it over, should do the trick. But if there's a more vicious response, keep quiet, let it play out, and the next time don't say is it over. The next time the emotion settles, simply say, I understand this has been very bad for you, and see how that makes you feel. Perhaps that will give you a sigh. You know, your breathing will change. Watch your breathing. What's very important in this whole thing is to watch your breathing, because the moment you take a deep breath, it's a sigh of relief, and that's the software switching back. It's the child letting go and the adult coming up again. So watch that. The moment you will acknowledge, I know it was very bad for you, and your breath goes, and then you know that the child is settled. Be with that, Jessica. If there's any more questions, come up. Yes, Hannah, is it possible that the child doesn't want it to be over? Will I get an answer from the child when I'm releasing it? For the child not wanting, remember, children are survivors and they're tired because they're running like headless chicken. They don't know. You see, for children inside of us, these are conclusions drawn with very, very limited intellect. And they have to survive. They have to live because you have to live. So once the child starts believing that you can take charge of life and put that in order, then the child will let it go. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Hannah. Elisa, is this always the rule with the language? Can I use several languages when I'm talking with the inner child besides the mother language which I use? Yes, Elisa, you can use any language as long as the inner dialogue or communication feels correct. And who decides what is correct? You decide it yourself. So maybe sometimes you find one language works with a particular issue, but with a different issue, it's another language that works. And that also sometimes gives you a clue to the formation of the different ages at which these programs have got concretized inside of you. But the thumb rule is use the language that is comfortable for that moment inside. Jessica, yes, understood, sir. Thank you. Awesome. Samir, wow, so insightful. Thank you very much, sir. Oh, nice. Are we done with the questions? Anything else coming up? Aarti. Okay, Aarti, your question. Hi, Yuvraj, sir. My question is, if someone is being harassed at work for years, and now the person acknowledges that this is for sure a backlog, but also it's true that the harassment is happening because the person has sanctioned it. So in such a situation, Do the person has to respond to it or just recognize it and feel it? And how long should we keep enduring the pain? Well, so you've partly answered your own question, Aarti, because if you're being harassed at work, you understand you have sanctioned it, but that doesn't mean you have to suffer from it till your grave. The universe is not a witch hunt. The universe is not a Rubik's Cube. The universe is here for you to understand and evolve. The two most basic qualities that you will require to combat life or master it is the ability to observe and to reflect. So you observe. I observe that at my work, I'm getting into trouble. It's happening over and over again. I reflect. So in the reflection, I figure out, yes, I sanctioned it. So now, so if I sanctioned it, does that mean I have to suffer till my grave? That would be guilt. No, I don't. What do I have to get out of it? Yes, there's a learning, there's a wisdom. Sure, that's how karma and destiny plays out. But what's vital is to acknowledge that it happened. It's over. I paid my price. I have suffered at work. So don't let mental constructs of destiny and karma ever imprison you. That will be the gravest mistake that you make with knowledge. Karma, destiny, past lives, etc. are never meant to be punishers. They are simply meant to broaden your spectrum and awareness of who you are. So there is no rule that says you have to keep enduring pain. If that is happening, then there's a deep-rooted issue with guilt. Just acknowledge that. Erika, hi Erika. Trust you're well. Loved it. I'm glad to be of service. This is my job and I enjoy every moment of it. So I think this has gone well. We haven't done too badly for a first time attempt. Hana, nice. How will we know it's over? I'm answering that question now. So, you know it's over with two things. First and foremost, you know that it's over when your response stays peaceful for longer periods of time. That's the first sign that it's over. And the second sign is that the environment and the pattern changes. Then it's over for sure. So it begins with you and your response. That's the first part of it. And the second part is you see the shift happening in the world outside. Okay, there's somebody called teacher. Thank you, doctor. Oh, it's a pleasure. Please call me Yuvraj. Doctor sounds too formal. Yuvraj is just fine. Yes, Mariam. Thank you. This has been so useful. Yeah, that, the whole idea of the Nurturers Meets is to come up with small things in life to make life easier, make life simple. Life isn't difficult. Life is not a challenge. You can make it one, but life is easy. And it can be put into a framework if you just follow simple principles. So good luck, Mariam. I'm glad you found it useful. Hannah, thank you. Yes, pleasure as always, Hannah. Elisa, what about concrete rehearsals that I can use by myself besides these principles? Elisa, I'm not so clear about your question. When you say concrete rehearsals, what are you referring to? If you clarify that, then I would explain that. Nisha Menon, what is Vision 2020? Oh, that is something I've embarked on this year. I've kept a 2-year framework for getting every person I meet into a zone of abundance. That's why the whole dose formula comes from my Vision 2020. Jessica says something intriguing. Why would we want to make life a challenge? Of course, if we have children who want a self-worth. So if as a child you've lost your self-worth, the easiest way to get that back is to make life very challenging. Because the more challenging life becomes, the more is the sense of accomplishment you get out of covering the challenge. So it basically deals with self-worth issues. Yes, Elisa, I get your question. I mean exercises. Well, just follow what I told you to do. In exercises, as I said, make a list of 4 things to do every day for you. Number 1 thing for your happiness. Number 2, 1 for your sense of accomplishment. Connect to people and do something of charity. These are practical. Beyond that, the only exercise would simply be to acknowledge when the emotion starts to end, to say, so is it over? Beyond, don't expand that framework right yet. Baby steps, and let's see how that goes. Aarti, thank you, sir. As usual, you are always my best guide. Gratitude to you. Good luck, Aarti. Thank you for zoning in. Erika, I'm taking your question. Just to clarify the emotions of the inner child. Yes, of course, for sure. It can completely be the present life. I answered that when I was responding to Jessica, because I didn't really talk too much about past lives, but the same holds true very much for inner child, this life, totally. Okay, so that stands. Present life. Jessica, what's the real subconscious benefit? That is the, should we say, that's the coping mechanism of the child. That is the subconscious benefit. Because when the child thinks and feels something and it decides a coping mechanism, that coping mechanism gives it what it understands as its own survival strategy. And that survival strategy is something it masters over life. So the $1 million question here is, who is going to master your life, your child or you? That's it. It's as simple as that. Rijosh, what if there is an issue to enjoy actual happiness? Example, but once I have shopped, it's a case of what is next. It looks like a never-ending chase. So would it be a case of aligning the dose formula? You can't do this in isolation, Rijosh. You have to do all the four. Because if you stick to only one, then your hormonal profile is lopsided. So that's not how this has to go. You have to do all the four things, and then you realize that your wish list will start to come down. Don't over depend on one thing. Yes, Nisha, all right, sir. Very informative as usual. Waiting for more chances. Thank you, Ruchika. So good to see you. Any views on tackling physical cellular issues, even though the feeling is acknowledged and webs? Well, if it's physical cellular issues, take your fingers and start gently tapping that part of your body where the physical cellular memory is and keep repeating, it's over, it's over, it's over, it's over. That's the easiest way to tap physical cellular issues. Yes, Ruchika, thank you. Acknowledged. And Yasmin, this has been great. Thank you, Dr. Yuvraj. I wanted to ask, is the inner child in our subconscious mind? The inner child is in your critical filter. All your softwares are in your critical mind. They're not in the subconscious mind, they're in the critical mind. Which is why all healing basically involves healing your critical mind. Sir, do we do deeper IC work in that? So yes, Jessica, we do. Of course we do. We have a whole module on that. So take this seriously, okay? I will do a review a month down the line. So hopefully we get together for all those of you who can make it on that day, and we will plug in and we'll do a review to see. And at that time, probably we will have much more sharing. Hannah asked that where is the critical mind? It's partly conscious and it's partly subconscious. That's where the critical mind is. So there is some part of it that's in your conscious awareness and some part of it that's in your subconscious awareness. It gets formed normally when your brain is getting coded with neural pathways between the age of 0 to 8. That's the answer, Hannah. What does the critical mind do? The critical mind gets programmed through socio-economic, educational, and religious inputs into a sense of value systems that you want to live your life by. And then the primary job of the critical mind is to evaluate everything that is happening in your life against this programming. And subsequently, naturally, there is a feeling that comes out of that evaluation, and that feeling gets stored in the critical subconscious mind. That is the function of the critical filter. Okay? It assigns emotions and feelings to events. The subconscious mind just stores the events. It's the critical filter that assigns the emotional charges to it. Illuminations, thank you everyone. Yeah, I am late to the... Hi Amir, what a pleasure. Wanted to say hi. Yes, hi Amir, good. Sir, if the inner child is in critical filters, then what about inner children of past life personalities also in the critical filter? Yes, it is also in the critical filter. Yasmin, I never knew that. Thank you. Now you know. Have fun. Good luck, everybody. So, hi Hannah, Yuvraj, happy. So, same here. The feelings are reciprocal. It was amazing to connect to all of you. It was a very strange experience for me because I'm only looking at my face on the screen. So it takes a little getting used to. But the energy was nice. So, amazingly good experience. Keep a logbook and sharing. Yes, Rana. Hi. Acknowledged you. Lovely to see you. Same here. Elisa. Thank you so much. Love and light. Yes. Good luck to all of you. Bye-bye.